Hi, everybody. This is Kathy L. Murphy, the Pulpit Queen, and I'm reporting live from my little cabin in the woods, Murphy's Law. And tonight we have Wendy Willis Baldwin, The Sisters We Were, which is, for me personally, one of the most important books this season because it's about two sisters, and I have two sisters myself, besides me, and their relationship and what one sister goes through. And it's not only a page turning book, it also brings to light something that is very important with women today, and that is our weight. So, Wendy, first of all, tell us a little bit about your background. I mean, we met because of my literary agent, Marley Rusoff of Marley Rusoff and Associates, and she said, "You have to read this book." And I could not put it down, and I actually said I'll pick it, and I hadn't even read it yet, but it's great. It's absolutely great. So Wendy, tell us about you. Tell
Well,
us.
thanks so much, Kathy, for having me, first of all. Yeah, and a little thank you to Marley Rusoff, my agent, your dear friend, and someone you've known for a long time. And as I was saying before we jumped on this thing tonight, it was very much a fluke when I sent my manuscript to her a few years back. And I thought the odds of getting Marley to represent me are probably slim to none. And I sent the manuscript out on a Friday and just kind of held my breath. And by Sunday night, to my surprise, she had responded and said she'd just finished the manuscript and that she was looking forward to talking to me the next day. And she had shared with me that she had lost a family member to complications associated with obesity. And so for her, the subject matter, which is one of the issues in the book, The Sisters We Were, is a novel about sisterhood, but it's also about the ways in which trauma lives in our body, right? And so for some people, I think we're so used to seeing, people who have issues with maybe drugs or alcoholism or, some sort of abuse or something like that. We cope, and we're used to seeing people represented in the arts in ways that are like that. But I think for a long time, we've had this perception that, especially with people in the obesity category and that level, anybody with a weight issue or whatever, that it's somehow tied to something, like laziness or something like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, like that it's some sort of self-inflicted kind of situation. And it's like, well, first of all, there are a number of reasons that people can have issues with obesity disease, which we now know is part of a metabolic syndrome. But and it's not just food addiction. It just so happens that the main character in this novel is someone who suffered from food addiction. And so the story of The Sisters We Were is all about how Pearl Crenshaw, the protagonist, decides ultimately to save herself because she's 531 pounds. And the doctors have told her, look, if you keep going like this, you're going to be bedbound in another year. And she kind of intuitively knows that already. But she, in desperation, says, all right, I've got to do something drastic. And she does. And it's about that journey she takes and what happens to her relationship with her sisters. Because the other thing that interests me greatly is how our personal relationships sort of expand and contract. And I noticed that this was true for me in my own relationship with my sister, who had struggled with this issue for most of her life, but that the weight becomes sort of a barrier. I mean, it is a very real metaphor. And our relationships would kind of expand and contract sort of based on the number on the scale in so many different ways.
It's so true. And it's a lot of times when people overweight, people think they have no self-control. I mean, they just let themselves go. But it has a lot to do with hereditary. Diabetes runs in my family. I got full-blown diabetes. And for those in the audience that do not know, I had bariatric gastric sleeve surgery to get rid of diabetes. And the minute I had the surgery, my diabetes was gone.
Yeah.
A lot of people do not know this. I've been telling everybody that it has changed my life. I've lost 83 pounds without even trying, because basically all you can do is eat in any one meal the palm of your hand. When,
Right. Right.
if anybody has any questions about it, they can email me later. But this book is the first time I've ever seen in a novel addressing this issue. Now, there is a wonderful book that is written by a really good friend of mine who's also an artist, Carol Dawson, that I want you to
Hmm.
read. She's a Texan from Austin.
Okay.
Carol wrote The Body of Knowledge, and
Hmm.
it's a story about a woman who weighs 600 pounds. If you have not read it, it is one of the best books I've ever read, and it's just wonderful. And then the other thing is, if you have not seen the Brendan Fraser film, The
Hmm.
Whale,
Hmm.
I that movie, I just I can cry right now when I think about. I love Brendan Fraser anyway.
Hmm.
I've followed his actor's journey, and he's a brilliant actor. And that role was, I think, had a lot of truth. But we the reason why we share stories like Wendy's is because we can have the conversations, and the ones that, when we live with secrets and lies and fears, that's when the problems begin. When we
Right.
tell the
And,
truth,
mhm,
when we read the truth, and the truth can be recognized in a wonderful novel such as The Sisters We Were, we can
mhm.
have the conversation. And when you let it out, all of a sudden, that embarrassment, once you say it, it's kind of like when you go to Alcoholics Anonymous, people who go say, once you say I am an alcoholic, it's like this boulder rolls off your back. Well,
Right.
this is a great book, and it isn't just a book about this. It's a book about sisters. And
Mhm.
I think sisters have the most incredible bond. And we also, it, my family, in some ways, we were so close, we were kind of in competition with each other. And now that we're older and understand, but I think those issues about, there's nothing like a sister. I mean, absolutely nothing in the world. So, um,
Well, they're our first friend and they're our
yes,
first confidant, our trusted advisors, et cetera. And yet it's the relationship that becomes so complex, right, over the course of our lives. I mean, and your point that you made earlier about Brandon Fraser's role in The Whale, I saw that film and loved it. So appreciated the story. I appreciated his acting. But the sad part for me on the Brandon Fraser film was that this is a story about a character who ultimately um, has lost the will to keep going,
right,
and to push through and overcome his situation. Now, there were a lot of victories along the way in terms of how he repaired and just at least sort of got in touch with the daughter and that kind of stuff. But what I love about The Sisters We Were is that it is a story that offers hope to people, because it really does underline that whole notion that we are just one decision away from a totally different life. We can wake up today and go, you know what, I'm in charge of this. And it's that old proverb about, fall down 7, rise up, rise 8, it's not
yes,
what happens or whatever, but the secrets really are the reason that so many of us get weighed down, right?
right,
It's and it is very true that some people cover their secrets with other things that are we're used to seeing or that are more socially acceptable. For instance, Ruby in the book is sort of a runner and a kind of ultra
yeah,
addicted to fitness and everything, and it's her coping strategy. It's really how she sort of beats the devil out of her in her life every day. And that's, her wounds are there. They're just a little harder to see.
right. We all have those disabilities that aren't seen. And a lot of them is just because we're afraid that if people find out the real us, they won't like us anymore. But then there comes a point where you have to love yourself, right?
Mhm.
So these women, it shows that, through their sisterhood and their friendship, that, you know, we have to be support each other, and everything in this world has us competing, and I don't compete against anybody. The only person I'm hard on myself, you know, we're
Mhm.
really hard on ourselves. But the only person that we really need to worry about is if you're in tune with yourself, then it's easy to love everybody. But if you're
Mhm.
unhappy, it's really hard to be happy, and you make other people miserable. So
Mhm.
there's so much to discuss in this book. I can't express it enough. It's the perfect book club read. And now, have you always wanted to be a writer, or how did this come?
Well, yeah, I mean, from the time I was little, I liked stories. I mean, I was the girl that was always striving to win the bookworm award every year in school, and um,
Ah,
I wrote stories, I wrote poetry, I memorized nursery rhymes, and I then turned into the sort of the journalism geek in high school. Worked on the paper, and I kind of thought I was going to be burning my path professionally in the world of broadcasting, and I did initially early in life, and then I had kids, and took some different professional turns, but ultimately writing has always been sort of a part of whatever position I've had, whatever I've done, whether it's broadcasting or advertising and freelance writing and things like that. So it's always been there, the storytelling part, and I just had an opportunity about a decade ago to sit down and just pursue it full time. And so I did. And the story of that is even one of major perseverance, because this was not the first novel I wrote, which, for any writer, like,
yes.
was no surprise. It's the first one that's published, but it wasn't the first one I wrote. And so I had to learn a lot about the process of publishing, and also just face rejection more times than I would really care to recall. But all of that. I mean, this book this finished product is like the third time it was written.
Yeah.
And so, and I mean total rewrites. And so I'm grateful because the editorial process was what it was. And at the time I was going through it, it felt painful. And it felt exhausting, and I was filled with a lot of the other Wendy is sitting on my shoulder going, "You're so dumb, why are you doing this? Like, go
A
get
lot
a
of
real
angst.
job."
Yeah.
Like, why are you spending your time pursuing something when nobody's giving you any validation about it, whatever. And I don't know, there was just something, you have to kind of have a compulsion, and so I would find that anytime I sit down to write, and I still find this to be true, like I'm sort of in my happy place. There are three things, I mean, that I can kind of lose myself in. One is writing. And I just feel good when I'm doing it. And I feel productive, even if all I've done is write words that no one else has written. I have this odd sense of having been productive. And then painting, I feel that way when I paint too. I can lose my, I know you're a
Oh,
painter, Kathy.
oh
So
my gosh. I did not know this. This is
yeah,
that's great.
and
That's great.
I don't paint enough, but like I found that when I do, it's just I lose all track of time, place, and I'm just in this zone, and it's wonderful. And then I find that things like in nature, I can be that way, whether it's like gardening or beekeeping or walking in the woods or whatever. I
Oh
can,
my gosh, we have so much in common. Okay.
yeah.
That's great.
So
But
anyway,
don't you feel that if you have one talent in the arts, that usually you have talents? I look at, we recently lost Tony Bennett, and Tony
yeah,
Bennett was a wonderful artist. A lot of people didn't know that. There's a lot of people. The guy who played in the Holocaust movie, the pianist,
yes, yes, yes.
wonderful artist. Jim Carrey. Have you seen
Yes.
Jim Carrey stuff?
Yes, I have actually.
I
In fact, it's so funny you say that. I was in Miami at a hotel called the Betsy, and it's in South Beach, and they had a bunch of his art on the wall. And up until I'd walked into that lobby, I'd never realized that he was the artist he was, and I was really admiring a lot of it. It was really cool.
I really love his what he does. It's so
Yeah.
Johnny Depp is another
Uh-huh.
one that is a painter, and Hannah Nicole Smith was a painter. I think a lot of people are musicians. They're, playwrights. They're songwriters. It's the full gamut. But it is true, when you can throw yourself into a creative process, you can get out of your own mind for a while.
It's
My,
escapism,
it is.
and
That
maybe a healthier one than lots of other things, like, I'm
Well, I
exactly.
really feel like that, and that's why I want everybody to read my book, is because books did save me because of these teachers that got me reading. Because when you find an outlet that you can escape to, that you can escape the atrocities of your own life,
Mhm.
then you can go through. It could have been a lot different if I hadn't had those teachers and librarians who saw something in me I didn't see. Because people turn to drugs, they turn to alcohol, they hoard. I mean, there's
Mhm.
all kinds of manifesting ways of people dealing with trauma. But
Mhm.
this is the first time I have ever really seen this addressed in such a life affirming way.
Mhm.
So I agree with Marley. I understood immediately when she told me you were from Texas, and that you were from Texas, right?
Uh-huh.
I
Mhm.
said, and that you wrote this book. I thought, oh man, and it's got a great cover, and it actually has this very Fourth of July look about it, because you've
Mhm.
got the star. Oh, it's not stars, but it.
It's really a fun story. Side note on the cover, Kathy. This was the second cover that Source
Oh,
Books presented. And as an author, when you sign a deal with the publisher, it's like, especially as a
yes.
debut, I don't have anything to do with that process. And it was like, they want to send it to you and say, hey, how do you feel about it? Yay, that's how I feel about it. But the first cover they sent was actually one that I really wasn't too keen on. It was mauve, and it wasn't quite as attention getting as this. And I have to brag on Source Books, because I was kind of concerned about it, and I just very diplomatically sent a message saying, hey, I don't know that it really represents the two characters in a way that, and to their credit, they completely like scrapped the whole first one and came back with this, like 6 weeks later, this all new design. And I absolutely fell out of my chair when I saw this, because for
I love.
me, it's one of those. I would buy this book if I saw it on a shelf. It would speak to
Yeah.
me for obvious reasons, and so much of my own story is in here. But yeah, I was really pleased with that.
You know, I love it. And I'm not surprised, because I hear these book cover stories all the time. My first book cover that I was sent was orange with zebra or tiger stripes. And
Uh-huh.
our signature look is hot pink and leopard print. And I, I, I go, did you guys read the book? And I was afraid to call them. So I called Marley and said, would you call them and tell them? And so they changed it. And it's still, the first cover was really crazy, but you don't have a say. And,
Mm-mm.
but they
Well,
did
their
it.
first cover, they had two representations of two girls, both of whom looked very stick thin. And the issue for me was that, first of all, the protagonist in this book has never been stick thin. She was always kind of a girl who was sort of more on the plump side, um, and her evolution over time was what it was. So I just found it to be not a good representation, but they changed it, and you can kind of see that maybe the little sister, maybe, it's hard to say. I mean, because I looked a lot like the little sister right there when I was that age.
Well,
But
are you the oldest in your family?
I am. Mhm.
Yeah, me too. And you're my hero for something that you did this week. I think it was this week. You went swimming in, I guess, a creek or a lake or
It
somewhere.
was I live in New Hampshire, and so we were up
Okay.
in the White Mountains hiking.
Well, you have I'm bowing to you, because you showed yourself in a swimming suit in all kinds of climbing. And see, that's so me. I swam in creeks and ponds and lakes and lifeguarded, but I never was a skinny mini. And you look fantastic. And I just thought, good for you, because we also have that body shame of putting on a swimming suit, don't we?
Right. Like, but I felt so heroic. Like I didn't feel, it wasn't about my swimsuit as much as it was like, I finally, my kids were egging me on because they wanted me to jump off this cliff, and they'd all done it, you know, and my husband was everybody was going, come on, mom, come on. And I have such a fear of heights that I was just really struggling with the whole thing. And at the same time, I didn't want to miss the opportunity to have that like moment of like, I did it, you know, and
your family was cheering for you. I know.
Yeah. And so I finally I took the plunge, and oh my God, the water was so cold. It was, the worst part was landing in the water because it was so cold. It wasn't the jump itself like I thought it would be. But anyway, yeah, I felt pretty heroic just because I did it. Like, and not the truth of any, like when we do something that's out of our comfort zone, big or small. I mean, this was hiking in the woods on a Sunday on a little cliff ledge that we found by a waterfall. And I felt like king of the mountain, you know, and
you were.
It's fun to do stuff like that when we don't give ourselves the opportunity, which is actually, I mean, bringing it back to Pearl Crenshaw in the book, she has so many firsts that are associated. The things that she can do, her world opens up in a huge way because she's not hindered by all the pounds that she had, you know, gained over these years, and the trauma that she just wrapped herself in, the secret that she kept hanging on to. And finally, when she gets rid of all of that is when she starts doing things. She can pee on an airplane. She can cross her legs. She can walk across a room without being winded. She starts getting the attention of this cute little guy at her work. And, you know, I mean, all of these fun, life-affirming things begin to happen for her in small but very meaningful ways. And it's really a lesson in saying, you know, what if I try this? What if I don't stay stuck?
Right. Well, and I'm one of these people that, you know, I have people go, oh, you look fantastic. You're beautiful now. And I'm like, I'm the same person that I was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And it kind of is upsetting to me. We put too much emphasis on that look. And I'm a beauty professional, and I don't think there's anybody better in the world to tell people it's not about the perfect body, the perfect lips, the perfect hair. You know, the reason why I got on Oprah Winfrey is because I did a best bald head contest and best wig contest for a woman who'd gone through cancer. She wrote a book called Bald in the Land of Big Hair, and it got me on Oxygen Network. But I said, you know, don't judge a book by its cover. Read the book, people. And then, you know, but I think that's what makes you so beautiful is, and you could just see the joy in your face in those swimsuit pictures. And
I'm sorry, Kathy, that was a tractor going by our farm. Sorry.
I never even heard it. I couldn't even hear it.
Okay.
I just applaud everything you're doing. I'm really looking forward to your next book. And I want to know, how does your family feel about all of this now? Because yeah,
it was they've been very encouraging. Of course, sadly, my mom and dad are no longer here. And the worst part of that for me, Kathy, is that my mom was an English teacher for her whole life, you know, and she was in a book club in Texas. And for a while, I was even in my mom's book club, which was really kind of fun. But my mom was a huge supporter and a huge source of encouragement for me to continue to pursue my writing. And she was my big fan. And I'm so sad. I got to show you this real quick. You'll get
sure.
And I've posted about this, but my mom died at the beginning of COVID. And the Christmas before that, a year before she passed, she gave me this box, and it's a memory box. And I've got a bunch of my old writing in it. But she wrote this lovely little poem to me and gave it to me. It's just such a simple little gift for Christmas, right? But it basically says, one day this box will hold Wendy Baldwin's first edition. And I know. And when we moved up here to New England, this box had been packed in boxes or whatever, and I was looking for it and I couldn't find it. And I finally
Oh,
found it. And it was so magical because it happened that I had received the initial copy of my book. And I was finally able to put it into the box. And so it stays right here in my office. And I just feel like my mom kind of knew, even though she's not here to sort of celebrate and enjoy seeing it on the shelf and whatnot. So that's a real personal story. And then, so it's just my sister and brother and I, and our parents are gone. And my sister, of course, was wildly supportive throughout the making of this book and helped me in so many ways. The part that's true in this story is the timeline and the weight that our protagonist, Pearl Crenshaw, reached. She was 531 pounds. She lost 349 pounds over the course of 18 months. And that was the exact timeline that my sister in real life had, and what she achieved in such a short amount of time. And I chose to do that model, because I think a lot of people have a hard time wrapping their heads around the notion of 531 pounds. Like it's a big number by anybody's standards. It's a lot, and it's there's no debate about it. It's not healthy. You can't do much at that size. It's very limiting. And there's a lot of judgment that people in that category really face, and pain. So I was really pleased to have that. And the reason I went with that timeline that my sister achieved was simply because I didn't have to do much math. I knew her exact, we had chronicled, we had celebrated her milestones as she went through the whole process and the whole journey. And so it was all stuff that we knew. But even the stuff that happens before, a lot of people don't understand that especially at my sister's size, she really did have to lose weight before they would even count her as eligible to have the surgery, before it was safe enough for her to even pursue it. And that's not the case for other folks who are, having issues with weight, but not at that advanced level.
Oh, they want you to lose weight before you have the surgery, because it just makes it easier. And it's life choices. But when you've got a support team, like group therapy, like, those types of things definitely help. And it's not over after you have the surgery, because unfortunately, every Tuesday night is when we have our group. I have to watch them later, where we have the group meetings, but you have to continuously remind yourself that you don't want it to happen again. And it can, if you do not, if you don't make the right choices. Even when you have it done, there are things that can go wrong, and they do. And so I'm very careful. But now that I have my health back, it's changed my whole outlook about being in my old age, because, I'm 67 in a couple of weeks, and I actually feel better than I did when I was 40.
That's terrific.
I do. Because
Goals.
I know. So
that's how I want to be. I hope to be that person.
Well, there was a 107-year-old woman dancing on Facebook the other day that was from Thailand in the traditional dance. And I said, by God, that's what I want to be. If I'm going to live to be old, I want to be able to dance like that. And I'd like to see, my big thing was I wanted to see my grandson grow up. And I'm just pretty partial to him. And he's just amazing. And I watched my parents, my mother is still alive, but she has dementia and Alzheimer's. And my father passed away actually 8 years ago. It's hard to believe. But, when you lose your parents, you kind of lose your anchor. You kind of feel like you're a boat adrift. But, I've got a sister nearby, and she's had a lot of health issues. We just try to support each other. And wonderful book. Now, is there something in particular that really stands out to you that you would like everybody to know, that was, this is not a preachy book. This is a story that is very engaging. But is there something that I haven't addressed, that you want people to know about, that came up in the book, or something funny, or tragic or whatever, something that has not been discussed before?
Um, yeah, I think one of the things that we see talked about a lot right now in terms of our pop culture and whatnot is this idea of body positivity. And you and I kind of talked about it a little bit, Kathy, but we didn't really go there. And my feeling is that body positivity is about doing positive things for your health,
Right,
period. One of
right.
the things that I loved about my sister's attitude when she was getting when she had decided that she wanted to lose weight and save herself, was that she didn't have a number on a scale that was guiding her. It was really, she wanted to get to what she called her tuck-in weight. And that was just something that
Yeah,
she
I
made
know what
up.
that.
And I've told her she needs to take that and run with it, because it was for her a feeling of being comfortable in her clothing, of being able to tuck in her shirt or something like that. And so it wasn't about some number on a scale that someone made up. It was about her feeling comfortable. And you fast forward to more than a decade later since my real sister lost her weight. And just last summer, she was up here in New Hampshire visiting me, and we went kayaking on a pond. And she had never been, she's 50 years old, she's never been on a kayak.
Oh my God.
And she was really, it was kind of like me jumping off that cliff. She was really scared, very nervous to do it. And she kept saying, "Oh my gosh, I'm going to sink it." And I'm like, "No, it's a kayak. It's buoyant. It floats."
Boy,
But she couldn't wrap her head around the fact that when she gets into this thing, it wasn't going to sink like a stone to the bottom of the pond. And so once she got in and she felt super comfortable, we were racing from one end of the pond to the next. And she was like better than my daughter and me. It was like, it was just a moment of total joy, because it's like seeing someone go, "I did it," and they never thought they would. They never thought they would. She never thought that she would be there. So when I see things in media and pop culture about body positivity or anything like that, I think it's really important that when you look at what is one of the number one health epidemics that we have facing not only people in America, but people all over the world, are battling obesity. You look at the opioid crisis, you look at the obesity crisis and all the comorbidities and things that are tangentially related to that. It's important to kind of, I think, recognize that body positivity is about doing positive things for ourselves. And it's not about ascribing some number to you,
right.
but what you're comfortable with. And so I just really wanted to touch on that, because this book is not about fat shaming or anything of the sort. And I just wanted to make sure I put that out there.
And most everybody has been so positive to me, and they go, "I didn't know that. Tell me more about it." And I've told everybody I know, but I've had several people say to me, "Oh, you did that. It's all gonna come back. It always does."
Yeah, which robs you of your own
And I
victory and
want,
your own.
and I said, "No,
Yeah.
it will not, because now I understand, what is involved." And she goes, "Well, you say that, but I had a friend who had it done. Here's how it goes." And she got tired of not being able to eat, so she had it reversed. I go, "Well, what I had can't be reversed, because
Right.
it took 85% of my stomach. They can't. They
Yeah.
can't reverse it." And
Well,
she goes, and then, but she argued with me, and I said, "Well, you're entitled to your opinion. Good luck
mhm.
to you." But I don't understand why anybody that's gone through something as traumatic as this and struggle for so long to get diabetes in control, or whatever your problem is, that somebody would, rain on your parade.
I
And
couldn't agree with you more. And when you look around, thank goodness we're starting to see more tools become available to people who are battling obesity disease. You've got the Ozempic drug out there. You've got all these
oh
different
yeah,
things that people are availing themselves of. And to the extent that people are trying to use them for the right reasons and avoid really deadly diseases like diabetes, hey, avail yourself of that. But this book is in no way trying to say that it's one size fits all. It is
Right.
just, this was a tool in the toolbox, and it worked for this character. And I hope that it's a story in the end that ultimately creates a sense of empathy, so that people recognize, like, you really can't make any judgments until you really know what people are going through, and how we all wear our grief and our trauma.
And that's why you have to join the conversation, because if you don't understand, you need to ask, So that's why it's so important to me that the authors are here and present so everybody can ask questions. So now I'm going to open it up to Anju Katani. Are you here?
Yep, I'm here. I'm sorry,
Are
I'm
you
a little late.
I know
Hi.
I know
Hi,
you
Wendy.
had to get your son. And Kathy, are you still here? I'm only getting my box and you, the person that's speaking, so it's hard to see who's there. But I want to open it up. So if you have any comments or questions, now's the time to bring them forth. Who's first?
So congratulations, Wendy. And I missed the first half of your presentation, but just hearing what your story is about, the characters, your sister's journey, I can't resist but ask this one question. How did the personality of your character change with the weight loss?
I think that what happens with Pearl Crenshaw, the protagonist, is that she ultimately begins to really connect the secrets that she was holding on to with the pounds that she kept putting on. And she begins to make that connection in a way that is healthy. Like, she realizes, I'm letting go of this. I'm not going to give it residence in my body anymore. It's occupied too much of my core. It's killing me. Hanging on to this stuff is killing me. And so we see Pearl evolve. Her load becomes lightened physically, emotionally, and her world opens up. I like to tell people, she gets smaller, her world gets bigger, and that really does happen for her. Simply by virtue of the fact that she can, wear her seatbelt in the car. She's not a danger anymore to herself, and all of these subtle ways that are very important, that people don't really factor in or know much about, quite frankly, unless you happen to love someone who is battling morbid obesity. And the other point I would make too, that's so meaningful about this particular story at this time, is that when you look at the incidence of obesity just in the US alone, just somewhere north of 43%, that means that all of us right here we either know someone, we love someone, or we are someone who is dealing with this issue. And so to that end, I hope it's something that starts some conversations.
Here we go. Thank you, Anju. That was a good question. Anything else, Kathy?
Well, I'm obviously not a light person. I have been. I actually almost wrote a book called Yo-Yo, because that's been my entire life. I've been very thin, and I haven't been like 500 or whatever it was pounds. But and to tell you the truth, I never felt like I was treated differently or felt any different, or my health was any different, other than in the medical establishment. I wondered if you dealt with that in the novel. I haven't read it yet, but I want.
Yeah, the character does deal with some of it. For instance, I mean, at her size, it's the issue of when she goes in for these, she knows her weight's escalated, and it's at a level where they don't even have the scale that can accurately weigh her, because it's so much. And so there is that natural shame and discomfort that the protagonist articulates in this story, and just the awkwardness of just not fitting in. And of course, she's very large, and I chose that, as I mentioned, for a very real reason. I wanted the protagonist to look and feel very much out of place at the start. and then see what happens as we go through, and kind of get to the root of what's getting at her. But yeah, I've heard about that medical shaming, that kind of thing. Yeah, I've read lots of articles about that. I did a lot of research on that, and I know it's a thing.
It's really sad.
And
Nobody-
oh, I should say, to your point, and this will validate a little bit of what you're saying. Not that I'm trying to say obesity is okay, because it really leads to, I mean, I'm married to a physician. It leads to a ton of things, including back problems and all of those things that I don't even have to tell you about. But I will tell you that my sister in real life, she was 40 years old when she had her surgery, and she had no markers for obesity, no high blood pressure, no anything. Like, her blood work showed no ill effects, knock wood. She was just remarkably fortunate, because at 40 years old, to be that heavy, and to show no real pre-diabetes or anything like that. So she was kind of an anomaly in that regard, but she was becoming, so she did have issues with regard to, there were some other things that I get into, the urinary incontinence stuff, and all of these difficult things that, we deal with even when we're pregnant or whatever. But there are issues. It just wasn't that she wasn't hooked up to an IV or anything, and she just couldn't move very well, and she was short of breath, and she was living a very limited life.
Voice. I commend you for writing it, and I also want to say you've given me hope, because I took it into not to pitch it. I wasn't ready to pitch. I was in a workshop, like a 4 or 5 day workshop
Mhm.
on writing a memoir, and I was told, why would you write this? It's been done to death. And
What?
I think it is the number one thing facing this nation right now. Whether you believe that, no matter what you believe.
Right,
So-
right. All the
Like-
reasons: sugar addiction, food additives, lack of access to green spaces, racism. I mean, there's so many reasons that you can point to for why we've all become bigger as a society.
Right.
It's been done to death, maybe in nonfiction, but I don't think so in fiction.
This was a memoir, and so maybe I'll make mine into a fictitious memoir.
There you
I don't
go.
think there's
I
anything.
support that. You know what? It might give you more liberty. It might make you feel like
Yeah.
you've got some wings, and you don't have to be, what's the old saying? Never let the truth get in the way of a good story.
Oh, believe me, I never do that. But I'm
Atta girl.
just open, and so I just want to ask one more thing, Kathy, and I promise I'll shut up.
No, keep going, keep going.
The secrets, and
Hmm.
in your research, did you feel like that's a predominant reason for obesity?
Yeah, this is very anecdotal. I mean, you're not going to find, like, I didn't find lots in the way of white papers on this or anything like that, but very anecdotally, you find that in bariatric practices where they do those patient intake evaluations, it is extremely common for people who are battling a really high level of obesity to have had some experience with childhood sexual abuse.
Right.
The numbers are strikingly high. There's a very, very strong correlation. And, in my family in real life, my sister and I both were victims of that. Not from our parents, who were wonderful people, but another older adult. And so it was always very interesting to me how in real life that manifested in me and my reaction to that trauma, and how it played out in real life for my sister, which was a very different way.
Mhm.
And, we can be from the same situation, exposed to the same, traumas and unfortunate circumstances, and our coping strategies can be, totally opposite. And yet we can still find our way back to each other through empathy and understanding, because we understand, like, that's what you were hanging on to. that's what's making Ruby such a crazy, kind of aggressive person. That's what's making Pearl want to hide. And so, yeah, I sadly found that that's a very strong
And
link.
it's wonderful that you, first of all, you had your sister, and second of all, that the book is about sisters, because family, that's the only other person as your sibling that's been through the same childhood you have.
Right.
Yeah. You have
Right.
shared history. Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
That is so important to know, but there's lots of reasons. I mean, there's just, these are just, but until we have the hard conversations, just like anything that we're dealing with today, whether it's, politics or racism or, the gay community, anything, if the more we talk about it and the more we really understand it, all of a sudden it changes, doesn't it? I mean, I've read so much that nothing hardly shocks me anymore.
Mhm.
It doesn't. But I am a firm believer in, if we want to change the world to be a better place, we've got to start treating our children better.
Mhm.
It's repeated patterns in parenting, and most parents begin with no training whatsoever, so they just do what their parents do, and generational, it just keeps going on, and it's time to make those choices, and the fact that you made a choice to write this book, it
Mhm.
speaks volumes. So
Aw.
read
Well,
The Sisters We Were, everybody.
thank
Yeah.
you so much for having me on. I so appreciate it, ladies.
I
Yeah,
have
well,
another question. Can I ask? I
uh-huh.
can't resist. I mean, and I'm just listening to this conversation. I missed half of it, but and this is interesting for me because I have a work in progress where my ethnic brown girl character begins at 300 pounds. By the end, she's down to half her weight, but there's a lot of ups and downs, and there's identity at crisis and fitting in, all the topics you just talked about. And
Mhm.
I'm just thinking, how did your character deal with her change in identity and what you were talking about recently about her sense of fitting in from,
Mhm.
from where we started to the end of the story?
Well, my character kind of embraces it. It's a little uncomfortable, and you see her sort of backstepping in a couple of different ways, but she enjoys it. She really does recognize that it's she's getting so much positive reinforcement that she keeps going to that. And so, yeah, I would say that it was a mostly positive experience for my character's development. Now, it is such a nuanced thing when you're dealing with your body image and certainly that level of weight loss. So she does not see herself. She has a real hard time looking in the mirror and seeing that she's not that person that she was before, even though everyone else's perception of her it's kind of like what you were saying earlier, Kathy. Everybody else sees her as this, new version of herself, but she feels like the same version of herself. So,
Exactly. I feel the same
um,
as I did now
yeah.
as when I had the weight on. I feel exactly the same. And it's a little bit upsetting to me that people put so much positive into, oh my God, you look great now. And you just, I want to say, I did this for my health. It
Mhm.
wasn't, something that I did because I'm not vain at all. I feel like people try to turn it into something like that. And it was a total health reason. But did your sister have any of that type of problem where people said, oh, you just want to,
I think she ran into, commentary. My sister was used to sort of getting commentary. I think anybody who lives a life of that size gets commentary or ugly looks, or, just they put up with a lot. And it's kind of like in the movie The Whale. It's a very difficult existence. It's a shell that you have, and it's one you wear, and the world sees the shell and they kind of oftentimes push you away. So Yeah, but I don't think, you know, my personal feeling, of course, is like what you decide to do with your body is your business.
Right.
And
I
if
agree.
it works for you, more power to you. So it's like avail yourself of whatever tools you have in your arsenal to achieve your personal goals for health and wellness. And
That's it.
um, you know, the rest of us should just shut up.
That's right. I agree. I agree with you totally.
Yeah,
I think it's all about we've got to quit judging. And
yeah.
women do it, men don't have any body shame. I mean, I can see a guy with a shirt off working in the yard and his stomach is just falling over his shorts and mowing the yard, proud as can be. A woman would never in a million years ever put herself in that position. And why is that there is no they don't have the same issues that we do? Do our parents put it? I know my mother put a lot of pressure on me. You're not going to have a waist if you don't wear a belt. You don't eat that, and you're a kid, but I think it's very interesting how society takes the before and the after too. And we just got to quit judging and let everybody just get to know the person. And that's what the wonderful
Know
thing
the
about the book
story.
club is. The book club, we get to know you as a person. And I have to honestly say, Zoom has been the biggest blessing for me because I have more conversations with the author than I ever did just meeting once a year.
Yeah,
So thank you for coming aboard tonight.
thank you.
I'm praying that we don't lose internet. I do have to make a couple announcements before we go.
Okay.
First of all, I just added these two authors to Girlfriend Weekend. All 2023 authors will be recognized at Girlfriend Weekend because they're up for Book of the Year, including you, Wendy. But I just added this wonderful book, Heather Ream. It's the best title ever. Lunch Ladies Bought My Prom Dress. When you read this story, it's a memoir. And I could not put it down. And
Oh,
one of my public
oh.
queens brought it to my attention. And then this is one of the premier American choreographers in the country. He's got his own dance company in Washington, D.C. His name is Dana Tysoon Burgess. He was raised in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and he is performing at the Lincoln Center November 30th. He has ties to the Smithsonian. His dance troupe performs before art galleries, which I find absolutely fascinating, where they're bringing the arts into a more of an entertainment value. He's on all these boards, and I've already talked to him. His book is Chino and the Dance of the Butterfly. It's also a memoir. I
Oh,
love
nice.
memoirs because we get to find out stories from different perspectives. He's third generation Korean American, but he grew up with Hispanics and Native American Indians. So he's very diverse, very woke. And he's a lovely, lovely person. And I think everybody's going to love these two people. And the
Oh,
last
excited.
thing I want to mention is everybody sends me their books, and I thought, I can't pick them all. And they don't understand. Well, I sent you my book. Why can't you pick it? And I go, because I get over 1,000, like 1,500 a year. So I'm now at the end of each movie, in the end of each thing, I'm going to mention these people's books. These are author members. Last Breath by Alan Sakel. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. It has the most beautiful cover I've ever seen, and it makes you want to read the book. I'm reading it right now. And then also, I just received Swana in Love, a novel by Jennifer Bell. I've already talked to Jennifer several times, and this book, I've never read anything like it, ever. And, this one will definitely be on a reading list. I've got it finished. I'm working
Yeah.
on this one. And then I just got today 2 books, and it wasn't, I don't know who they were from, if they were from the author or what, but they're Marshall of the Borgo and Murder on Book Row, which everybody, my Pacific Northwest loves murder mystery, true crime. I can't wait to read these, but guys, this will forever be up on YouTube. So if I don't pick your books this year, keep them coming to me because sometimes it takes me a while. And the last thing is I'm going to be starting back up my book and film clubs. And the very first one I had, I picked this movie and then I couldn't find my copy and I couldn't find it anywhere. It's back in print, and the book is based on a 1932 classic, Cold Comfort Farm, and it stars Kate Beckinsale and Joanna Lumley, who I absolutely adore.
Oh,
So I'll
fun.
be starting back this fall with my book and film club, and
Yay.
then my other film club, the Public Queen Shah Rukh Khan. In September, we have a new film from Shah Rukh, and we just have Patan and Jawan. So I'll be starting that back up. So these are all things back in the work. Fall is going to be a busy time. In fact, I'm going back to school, everybody, to get my master's in art. So I'm only going to be doing one post a day. If you have something, all of you authors here tonight, that you want to get up on our pages, post it on the official Pulpwood Queens and Timber Guys book club page, tag me, and I'll approve them, and then I'll share. But you've got to do it because I'm going to be really busy this fall. I'm going to be taking a full load. So
Good for you.
I cannot thank you all enough for being here tonight. And Wendy, I want to know you better. If you come to Texas, if you come to my house, come stay with me. I want to go swimming with you at the lake. So
I know, I'll get you to jump off a cliff.
I took my youth group down the Cumberland River, where they did the movie. What was that crazy movie with Bruce? Bruce, what was his name? I'll think of it here in a minute. But we went down the Cumberland and in a giant tube with a big football player guide. And he said, do you want to go down the easy way or the hard way? And all my kids, they were sixth graders, go, we want to go the hard way. We spun all the way down over boulders and rocks, and then we stopped to swim. We climbed up an embankment, and they had a slab of rock going at 30 feet. Yeah. And he was teaching the kids how to do backward flips off of it. And I was the last one up there. And I'm like you. I did the Eiffel Tower and about shook my legs off, but I walked it. But I got up there and all the kids are down in the water below and I had to jump and I did it. And it's like victory. I did it. So, make choices to try things that make life worth living, like Wendy has done, and write books like Wendy's, because we all need to learn stories behind the stories. And I can't say enough about your book. It should be read and read well. So get your copies today. What's the best way to get them, Wendy?
Basically anywhere books are sold. And also there's the Audible version, which I would be remiss if I didn't put a plug in for Cassandra Campbell, the voice talent on the Audible version. And the Audible version's done really well. She's amazing with it. And she too had a personal experience with a family member who died from issues related to obesity. And when she got out of the recording studio after she did this Audible, she said, hey, I just want you to know, I'm so glad you wrote this. It was really touching and it hit a lot of notes. It's just, I think a lot of people are going to find a piece of themselves in it, or someone they love. And hopefully, like you said, a life affirming, point of view.
Well, I can't thank you enough for writing it, and I'll be singing it for every time somebody asks me about weight loss. I tell them about your book.
Oh,
what are you working on now before we go?
I'm working on a story called Connecting Dot, and it's one I've been working on for many, many years. Dot's the main character, and it's a Texas-based story.
Connecting Dot?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
Dorothy is her name, but she goes by Dot for short. And she's a girl who, a lot like Pearl, experiences tragedy at a very young age, and loses a lot of people she loves. And ultimately, as she grows up and gets older, when her father is dying, she's kind of walled off from everybody. And her father basically says he's not going to will her his entire estate until she does three things. And these three things are all about connecting, reconnecting, and finding love again and finding family again.
Oh, well, you've got to give me that book. That sounds
Anyway,
like winner.
yeah, so it's going to be really fun, and it's definitely a lot of colorful Texas characters. So I love that.
You know, we got a lot of Texas characters, I'm going to tell you. But thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, and thank you for the last thing I wanted to mention about your book is the names of characters are very important to me. Just like the cover of the book is,
Yeah.
where did you get the names? Because I had horses named Pearl and Ruby.
Oh, wow, fun. Well, I'm so glad you asked that question. And here's a little fun fact. Pearl and Ruby, I just decided on because they're treasures. And, people who are victims of sexual abuse often have issues related to self-worth. And so I wanted Pearl to be someone, and also, by the way, a pearl is something that's made as a result of trauma, right? Like the way that a pearl is made in a shell. So for me, I thought the name Pearl was just very suitable for the protagonist, but this is the fun fact. Their last name is Crenshaw. And the way I came up with that is that my sister came to visit me. I was living in Virginia then, and we decided to go on a walk on this road called Crenshaw Road. And it's a long, windy path along Goose Creek. And I was telling her all about this idea for the book and everything. And she was, excited and sharing my joy. And we were walking and talking, and it occurred to me as we were walking and talking that was the first time in our lives that we had ever kept pace with one another on a walk. Because her whole life, my sister had always been the heavy one. She couldn't keep up. She was behind. She was, you know what I mean? And there we were on this 4-mile journey, and it didn't even hit me until the end of it. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to name them the last name Crenshaw because of that. Like, it's just sisters in lockstep. And I think it's what we all hope for in our relationships with people we love. And but that's the way I came up with the names of these two characters. So.
Well, how interesting is that? Thank you for sharing that. That's, I don't know if you've shared it before, but I just thought it was interesting because, we're always naming our pets and everything, all the names I love. And my two daughters have gemstone middle names, Helena Amethyst and Madeline Alexandrite. So,
oh, there you go. Okay.
Yeah, because I was a geology art major. And so it's all about the story. Keep them coming, Wendy. And seriously, now all your family's down around Austin, or where are they at?
Dallas and Lubbock. Yeah. And I've got some in Austin. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, my daughter lives North Dallas. So next time you're in Dallas, maybe we can meet up. So
look forward to it.
I'm trying to go. Alice Hoffman, everybody, is one of our authors coming up for 2024. And she's at the Dallas Museum of Art August 16th for their arts and letters program, like Jamie Ford was when I went to see him. So I'm going to try to get up there, and I'm trying to get some girls to
get into the air conditioning. Do that.
Oh, I just go from air conditioning to air conditioning. It's really, really tough. So we'll hang in there, keep swimming. And
thank you.
Keep those books coming. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. So nice to see you all.
And it'll be up on YouTube by tomorrow morning. I'll share it. Get everybody to subscribe.
I will
bye,
do it.
everybody.
Thanks, Kathy. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. Awesome. Awesome.